Hello and welcome to Above All Else, a podcast for women who are looking to grow in their relationship with Jesus. I am Brianna Verjowski here with Jen Kish and Emily Bird, and we are so excited to be back again, just with one another and with all of you. Emily, how's it been this week? How's it going?
Well, things have been a little out of routine in my house. My mom and my stepdad have been here with me all week, and my girls, especially my little girls, are absolutely giddy. Their grandparents are here. I am too. So they've been doing all the running with me and seeing how crazy life is, and also helping me with school. And they've been up late reading books and playing games. Last night they were doing flips in the living room. So it's just
Your
sweet, and
mom?
we've eaten lots of good food, and we've played games. It is good to be with my parents this week. So we've had a really, really good time. So it's
Your
been a
mom
great week.
was doing flips in the living room? Or
My
just the
mom,
girls?
my mom loves to do tricks with the girls, and of course
I
she's,
love
they're
it.
standing on her hands or she's flipping them over her head,
That's amazing.
and it's like, okay, Lindsay and Aaron, they're not little anymore. She's like, I can do that. So she's flipping them everywhere. So to be going on 73 years old and she's flipping these kids. I mean, Lindsay's, she's well, I don't guess she will mind that I say that she is now 107 pounds and she is so excited.
Oh, bless her heart. She's
She's
so tiny.
thrilled to be 100 pounds. She stayed under that 100-pound mark for a very, very, very long time. So, but she's also grown 4.5 inches in the last year. So my mom still thinks that they're little, and but it was just fun. It's good having them here, and so they're actually. They've taken Erin to gymnastics and are at her gymnastics class. So they're going to be there for 3 hours watching.
There you go. Oh man. Jen, what
Anyways,
about you? How's it been going on your side of town?
Good. Things are a little wild on my side of town. My parents were just here the weekend before last, and that was fun. But I'm right in the middle of, I had an event in Tennessee last week and an event in South Carolina this week that I'm speaking at. So I'm like, I don't know if I'm coming or going, but I'm here, right? It's just been a little bit crazy. But other than that, it's good. Just doing all the things, October, I know it's November now. But October is a crazy month, and I feel like we're just going right into November at full speed. So I'm just hanging on for the ride.
Yeah, that's how it was last week. I was at a conference for a few days and then came back for like the last little bit of school that Friday. But it's just been like go, go, go. And I was incredibly thankful for that hour of sleep we gained, though. I get that people are mad because it gets darker earlier. Listen, I will take an extra hour of sleep one day if it means that the sun goes down earlier. I don't even mind. My body was like, hey, it's time to get up. Before my alarm, I was like, this is perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So
I agree. I liked the extra hour this for the first time. Jared and I came back really late from Tennessee this past Saturday. So we were thrilled to get the extra hour on Sunday morning. So
it was nice. It was nice. So, oh man. Well, we talked last 2 weeks ago about discipline and not only discipline, but also like reconciliation with our kids. And we've talked a lot about children and our husbands, and we've talked a lot about those kinds of things. So today we're going to kind of pivot a little bit and talk about comparison. And Emily, I just want to kind of hear from you. When you think of comparison, what comes to your mind? Are there verses that you think of? What is the first thoughts you have about it?
well, when you said verses, the first verse that comes to my mind is I had to write this down because I just said in my head that those who measure themselves against themselves are not wise. And I think that's the way it is worded, but that's what I say in my head. When I'm measuring myself against other people, I am not wise, but boy, that's a battle because I consistently do it and I catch myself doing it, even though I know that verse That's in, let me see, 2 Corinthians 10:12. I'm all the time quoting scripture, but yet I can't ever reference it. So that's why I wrote that reference down. But it takes me back when my older girls were small. And I remember being at gymnastics class, and there was, you know how the moms sit in the stands and they're watching their kids. Well, there was one particular mom who her child was just a very, very talented gymnast. And Clara, bless her sweet little heart, she was a wonderful gymnast too. She was just young, but I was kind of complaining about Clara's performance and versus her daughter's performance. And this lady, and I'm so grateful for her, but she turned to me and she said, "Don't you realize that comparison breeds discontentment?" Like, wow. And she stopped me in my place. Comparison breeds discontentment. I will never forget. She really did put me in my place, and I will have never forgotten those words. And I have continually said those words to myself. I've said them to my children. I've said them to friends. When I realized that she really did give me a gift that day, even though she kind of hurt when she told me that. um, that is a gift. And when I realize that I am comparing, when I'm comparing myself, when I'm comparing my children to other children, it immediately steals joy, and I become discontent in my own skin, in my own circumstance, with the things that the Lord has given me. I become discontent. So I think that is the root of why we get caught in these comparison traps, is that we are discontent.
Mhm.
And if we can get a different mindset about who we are and whose we are, if we can get a different mindset about the things that the Lord has given us and the places He's put us in and the positions He's put us in, we will become much more secure individuals.
Mhm.
So, for sure.
Most definitely. Jen, what about you?
Well, I was thinking about something that someone said to me a few years ago. She was back in South Carolina, and she had come to my house to bring me something. And when she arrived at my house, she got out of her car and she looked around and she said, "I want to know what your husband does to have a house like this." And I was struck by it immediately, because there's something that she didn't know about that house, and that the fact that we had that house at that time in our lives was because I had inherited some money, because I through loss, and so I always think about that moment, and I almost wanted to say, you don't really know what that house cost me,
Mm.
and it's not the financial money or things like that, but it's like, it cost me something. I had another friend in Hartsville whose home burned down, and she lost her baby. They didn't get her baby out. And they rebuilt this gorgeous home, but anytime anyone would comment on it, she would say the same thing. You don't know what this actually cost. And so I think about that a lot with contentment, because we're always looking at things, but we never really know the cost.
Mm.
We don't know what it costs. Even a small, a gymnast, just to go back to your story, maybe she put in more work. I mean, I know they were little, but like, it probably cost her more work than, your children were putting in at that time, or, like, there are things that people can achieve and they earn, but do we really want, like, what goes with getting the things that we see on the highlight reel? So I think, honestly, oftentimes, whatever we're comparing, we don't have all of the information.
Mm-hmm.
We're just taking the bits of things that we see and piecing together a puzzle that we don't have all of the pieces to. So we get this very unclear picture of what's actually going on. And I think that
Right.
it can definitely lead to us, even to, like, some idolatry. Like, why did God give that to you or to
Mhm.
her and not to me? Which, gracious, why we deserve nothing at all.
Right.
So I think that comparison is truly a trap. It's a distraction, and it's just more deceit from the enemy.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely agree. I think that when I started thinking about, comparison, what do I compare? Or, what don't I compare? Let's be honest. I talk all the time about how my kids are wild children, but like compared to what? And I asked Joseph there was this little video that we used to watch in college, and it was this little snail, and I really don't remember much about the video. I just remember someone insulted the little snail, and he said, "Compared to what? Like, what are you comparing me to?" And I was like, so Joseph said something not offensive or anything like that, but I was like, compared to what? And then it's like, why are we comparing things? And it wasn't a bad thing that he was comparing, but then I started reflecting, like, how often do I, even my spiritual gifts, a lot of times, like you were saying, and I think that's where the Lord was really like hitting me when we brought up this topic. So, comparison, though, when we compare ourselves, a lot of times for me, it's with those spiritual gifts. I'm like, well, why does that? I want that gift. Like Joseph tells me sometimes that I am, what does he compare me to? Dak Prescott, the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. Not because I'm phenomenal at football, because I'm not, but because he is a what kind of leader? He just does all the things. He's not really good at one thing. He just does a lot of things well, but not really good at one particular thing, right? Like, and I'm like, Joseph, I would rather be really good at one thing. And he's like, well, that's not how the Lord has gifted you. I'm like, well, that person is really good at that one thing. And he's like, great. That's awesome. That's not how the Lord gifted you. Joseph's the first person to like humble me, knock me back into my place, which I appreciate about him. But that's, I think mine tends to be comparison, just in like in spiritual gifts, like you said, though, like we don't deserve any of it. Why am I saying like, oh, well, why can't I have that one? Now I sound like a greedy little kid on Christmas, like what's her Veruca from
Charlie and the
Charlie Chocolate Factory. Like she
Yeah.
wants it and she wants it now. And I'm like, oh, that stings a little bit. So that's kind of ooh.
We were talking just yesterday morning about the home that we had in Virginia, and we lived on a farm, and we had a small little it was a 2-story farmhouse. It was 1,500 square feet, and when we began to add children, and then I had homeschooled my neighbors, and so there were always bunches of kids in my house. And anyways, we just outgrew our house, and it was always tiny, and I always like to entertain. I like to bring people in, but as our house grew, and as our family grew, and as we began to homeschool, I mean, the stuff expands. So we just had a lot of stuff in a small house. And we lived in this house for almost 18 years, 17 and a half years. And I found myself just constantly complaining and apologizing for my home. And, I did not appreciate my house. And so anytime that, I'm driving down the road, I'm like, oh, I like that house. Or when my best friend, they had built this beautiful home, and I really was jealous of her house. And Janie will be listening to this. So Jane, I'm talking about your house. I was so jealous of your home, and I wanted a bigger space, but, it took until June of 2013. And I remember I was out in my garden. It's like 6:30 in the morning. The sun is rising over the pasture. We did have a farm. We had some land. And I knew that there were 4 little girls who were sound asleep in their bed, safe and warm. And here I'm in this garden, and the sun's rising, and I can hear the horses, they're munching, the birds are singing. It is just a heavenly, perfect day. And that is the day that my whole perception of my house changed. And I loved my home. And it wasn't about the house. It wasn't about the size of the house. And it was actually 1,460 square feet, not even 1,500. It wasn't the size of the house. It was, this is home. And it was nothing but memories and happiness. And I just said, I was there in my corn patch and I just cried and thanked the Lord. And I was so grateful for my house and for the memories that we've made. And I was like, Lord, I am so excited that I get to spend the rest of my days in this sweet place. Not, and I had to learn contentment and be grateful for what he had given me, for him to give me something different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and when he ended up moving us to Chattanooga, I was heartbroken, and he gave me a bigger house in Chattanooga. And I realized that it is not the size of the house. This is a tool that he gives us to show hospitality and love to other people. This is a tool, and until you appreciate what he's given us and given me, he was not going to give me anything different. And when he did give me something different, I was content with what I had. And
Yeah.
this was just it was an unexpected blessing that he had in store for us. But I've learned over the years, and it's just in it, and I'm continually learning that not only does comparison breed discontentment, but the way I battle it is by being grateful and by being thankful for what he has given me. And when I'm thankful for the small things, then he's going to entrust me with larger things. But I've got to be grateful rather than always griping about what I don't have or what I'm not able, I'm not capable. He's like, take small steps. You got to do you got to serve where I've put you, even though you may not feel like you're ready. He has gifted me in this way. And if I know my gifts, then I should be using them. I shouldn't be hiding them under a bushel. I hide them under a bushel. He's going to take those talents away from me. So he's blessed us in different ways. And Bree, when you're talking about those spiritual gifts, when I try to serve in places where I am not gifted, it becomes a miserable experience, and I make a mess of things. So I'm slowly but surely learning that this is the way I am gifted. And when I get out of and try to become somebody else I'm not, and use the gifts that I really, really want, even though I'm not gifted that way, I usually make a mess of things. So I don't know, but to get around to my circular way of thinking, I'm trying to get to thankfulness. I think thankfulness and gratefulness is the way we battle discontentment, which of course is the root of comparison.
Yeah. And I think comparison, when it does lead to that discontent, like when you find yourself in that place of discontent, that you have to really seek out contentment. So when we moved here from South Carolina, we couldn't find a place to live. And it was really hard for us because there was just nowhere to go. And we actually ended up living separately for a while so that my husband could come on up and get his job. And he had a roommate, so we couldn't even come and visit. And it was the weirdest thing. And it was a short period of time, but the roommate part was. But ultimately, he found us a house to rent. And it was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house.
I remember.
And we were bringing our 6 children, one of whom was an infant, right? And I remember being in that house. We weren't even really able to unpack most of our things because it was so much smaller than where we were coming from. And matter of fact, our 3 girls shared a room. And it was so small that all that was in there was their beds, and they were wall to wall and like both ways. So if you were going to be in the room, you were on somebody's bed at all times, and you could just roll from twin bed to twin bed to twin bed. And they were just all in there like sardines. And we couldn't even find the things that we loved, our possessions that we would, want around the house because they were boxed up and stored. And, we were only there for about 6 months, but it felt like forever. but the only thing that we could really do was walk. So it was a small little neighborhood with 2 cul-de-sacs. So Jared and I would, after we put the kids to bed, we would just walk the 2 cul-de-sacs back and forth. And I remember so well, like walk after walk, Jared just saying the words, practice contentment, practice contentment, because it's not a natural response. It is something that we have to intentionally think about. And there was no way out. Like we just had to stay in that season until our house was ready for us to move in. Like there was no rushing it. There was no pushing it. Like it was the Lord's timing from start to finish.
Right.
And so being stuck in that place where I'm comparing my life to everyone else's who seems to be moving on while I'm feeling stuck in this tiny house with my 6 kids, and homeschooling them there I think that really makes the difference, because we're moving school books off the dinner table to eat dinner table, and then moving dinner, to put the school books back on. And
Yes.
that's just sort of a whole cycle. So I think of that often. He actually wrote it on note cards, and I come across them every now and then, like practice contentment. And I'm just reminded that it is not a natural response to our situations, that it is something we have to bring to the forefront. And I think that's how we do it, is by listing off, okay, we are so thankful that we now live together up here. We're so grateful that everyone's under one roof, that everyone's healthy, that we're here for a good reason. And you can sort of practice contentment by making gratitude lists in your head. So anyway, I think about that a lot with discontentment. Just practice contentment.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Because like it's so true that it's not something that just comes natural, because our sin nature is to want, right? Like our sin nature is to want what other people have, or to be at that level that person is, or to have the house that person wants. And I think there's a little bit of when you were telling the story about your friend and her house burning, I was thinking about my sister. So my sister's house burned down, and like to the ground. They almost didn't make it out. Like it was very dramatic, like traumatic, even more so, I think. And I remember when my sister moved into her new house, I was like, oh man, I'm so jealous of your house. So nice. And I mean, it's a very nice house. And she, and then I started, thinking back, like, man, I should not have been envious, because she would have given literally anything to just be back at her old house. And at that point, like, I mean, it was gone. Like the foundation was all that was left of the house. And so it was just one of those things where, just in your story, I was like, man, I like have seen where I in the past have been so like, oh, I just love this. Is such a pretty house. And at the time, I'm not like, oh, I'm jealous or envious of your house. I just am like, oh, this is gorgeous, and she's like, thanks. My house burned down. And so I had to live somewhere besides your guest bedroom, because well, and I think that helped a little bit. Was they lived with us for 3 months. Yeah, they moved out in May. And so we went from a family of 3 to a family of 9 in the span of a couple
Overnight.
of hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let me be careful when I say this, because I 100%, if I could go back in time, would stop the squirrels from chewing through the wires and setting their house on fire. But I would not trade the time when they lived with me. Just want to make it abundantly clear.
Yeah.
I'm not
absolutely.
happy their house burned to the ground, but the time that we got to spend together. And I think it taught me to be just grateful for like their lives, right? Like we have possessions and they had possessions, and even watching my sister walk through that. And she has been, my whole family, we have a tendency to make jokes about traumas that we've experienced. It's a thing we do. And so when I had Kaylin, I was like, oh, well, I'm going to need, like thinking of all the clothes. And Brittany had passed clothes down to me. And she was like, oh, I have a swing that you used with, like, that was originally my now 12-year-old niece's. It was originally, hers. And it just got passed down from kid to kid. Well, I had given it back to her when she had her youngest. And she was like, oh, Kaylin can use that. And then she's like, oh, No, I burned up in a fire. Sorry, never mind. You'll have to buy a new swing. And I'm
Oh,
and like, for several months, there's things that come up that were but just the way that she modeled, like, this is what we have and this is what we're gonna do. And she was very I don't know, my sister is my role model, especially
Mhm.
seeing how she dealt with contentment. When I think of someone who was content in all circumstances, it was her. I mean, she
Yeah.
lived with me and I was not fun to live with because I yelled at my nephew a lot, but she crammed herself and her family onto one side of my house, and she was just so content. She never complained, like, ever. And shout out to Brittany because she's the best.
Mm.
But
she is
um,
extraordinary.
she's so wonderful. I'm just, oh man. But I think a lot of times one of the things that I've seen with especially the students that I teach is that, and it's not a new thing, like we know being content is not, or being discontent I should say, is not new, because it was before. It was like what, June Cleaver, right? Everybody's being compared to her, right?
Right.
Now it's like, oh, everybody thought, oh well, social media has made everybody compare themselves to everybody. I'm like, not exactly. It makes it easier, I think, for us to compare our lives, our behind the scenes, to everybody's highlight reel. But I
Mhm.
feel like this is something that's been going on for so long, and I mean, since literally the beginning of time. I mean, we're killing our brothers because of offerings to the Lord. Like,
Right.
so much discontentment and gratitude, being thankful, realizing, like, and I think, for I don't want to speak for my sister, but I think if I had to be like, why were you so content? It would be, you know what? My whole family made it out of our house.
Yeah.
Like, that's what happened. And so,
Mhm.
um, make what's the song? Count all your blessings, name them one by one, right?
Mhm.
And just every day, just naming those things, that even the small things, like, oh, I woke up today on time, or just the really small things to get started, to get that ball kind of, I don't know, start practicing being content.
Mhm. I heard something on social media, and I mean, everything on the internet is true, so it has to be
100%.
true. And
1000%.
maybe you girls have heard this, but I just recently heard that the part of your brain that's responsible for like anxiety and the part that's responsible for gratitude are the same. So they can't both work at the same time. So, like,
Yes.
if you're being grateful, is that good grammar? If you're
Yes.
like actively
Yeah.
being grateful,
Mhm.
then you can't be anxious, which I guess the
Mhm.
Bible says. That's what the Bible says, right?
Mhm.
Like, do not be anxious, but in everything give thanks, right? In
Yep.
everything with thanksgiving and praise. Is
Thanksgiving
that
and
Yep.
in supplication or praise. Yes.
yes,
Mhm.
yes. So
They should
maybe
present your request.
God knows more than we do. And he's like, hey, we can fix that anxiety
Yep.
if you just focus on the gratitude and the praise. And again, it was on the internet, so not sure that the facts are correct,
So
but the
it's
Bible verse
true.
is 100% truth.
Yes.
So
So
That's fascinating.
that's accurate.
it
And that
is.
is, yeah, so that's one of the things that they taught us. So when I was getting my undergrad is in Christian counseling. And so when we were going through all of our psychology classes, I remember them saying, like, these two things can't fire at the same time. You can't fire like, you have neural pathways that are firing constantly, right? Like, things you're not even aware of. Million, just all over the place, everywhere. But those two things will not fire at the same time. Like, you can choose, and I'm doing my hands because in my head I'm picturing a brain, and that's
Yeah.
Mhm.
Fascinating.
yes,
Those synapses. So it's either
snaps.
anxiety or thankfulness.
And
Yeah.
One of the
and
Isn't
two.
that something?
the more
Hmm.
neural, like, the more you train yourself or you practice a response like gratitude, or the more you practice that response, the more you're going to create those neural pathways that are going to make that your first response. And that's
Right.
why we have things like, you breathe and you do things that are involuntary. And so eventually, if you practice it enough, you can create those neural pathways that make it almost an involuntary response. Like, my response is not initially to freak out because I've been practicing it. You're creating, it's almost like paving a road. And if you're in Chattanooga, that's going to take you a really long time. A really long time. Get it together. But if you continually, like, this is this is my first response every time this happens, you can create new neural pathways and retrain, ultimately, is what it is. It's retraining your brain to perceive a situation differently, or to respond to a situation differently. And so anyway, that's a
Well,
little
that's
science for you.
fascinating.
A
Yeah.
little science
But
for
don't you know people who have done that, though, who are going through harrowing circumstances, and yet there is praise on their lips, and you're like,
you.
what can you find to be thankful for? But they have trained their brain to find things. My granny was one of those people. She always said, there's always something to be thankful for. There's always something to be thankful for. And there was a sign at Hobby Lobby that had that, and so I bought it. It's in my house as we speak. There's always something to be grateful for, or to be thankful for. And I remember specifically when I called him Pawpaw, when my granddad passed away suddenly. He during the blizzard of 1993, he went to meet Jesus in his sleep. It was just sudden. And when we finally made it to, with 4 feet of snow, finally made it to my granny's house that afternoon, we did not find her in disheveled, distraught, but I will never forget her standing at her kitchen sink and praising the Lord for all of the good things that he had done in their lives, that the Lord had brought him home from the war, that the Lord had given them 47 years together, that the Lord had given them their children together, that he faithfully served God. Like, she had praise on her lips.
Wow.
It's like her her right arm and right leg are now gone. Half of her is missing, but praise is on her lips. And
Wow.
she taught me years ago, when my parents had split up. I remember sneaking down and standing in the dining room behind the door and watching her kitchen sink, talking to the Lord, and it was just praise. Always, she was such a grateful person. And I remember at one time asking her, Granny, I never really hear you praying about anything, but I just hear you thanking the Lord. And she said, "Oh, Emily," she said, "when you understand that the Lord inhabits the praises of his people." And of course, she was a King James Version girl.
Yeah.
The Lord does inhabit the praises of his people. So for her to be in the Lord's presence, it comes with praise. And she was able to be content in a lot of really, really hard circumstances.
Wow.
Um, and so, but you see people like that who should be experiencing major anxiety, people who are going through cancer, and yet praises on their lips, and they are content in their situations. Just like Paul says, I will be content in all situations.
Yeah.
He can be in prison, and he is still praising the Lord. You can't read Philippians without feeling joyful. And when you think about his circumstances, wow, that is what we are called to be. So I love hearing about the whole physiological part behind it. Bree and Jen, I didn't know that. That's pretty fascinating.
The brain's my favorite thing to study. I mean, like, I guess that's not how, but it's just the way that I think that the way that God created our brains, and when we look at scripture, like Jen said, like, it says, don't be anxious, but give thanks, right? And those two things can't coexist. And the Lord knew that. He figured it out when he created us. It just took us a really, really long time and lots of psychological studies, right, to figure out all of those things. But when you look at, and this is me just being a little bit of a nerd, when you look at the way that the brain is created and the way that God created our brain to protect us, it's baffling. And it just points to this picture of a creator who just knows so much more than us. And just, I don't even know why we sometimes are like, no, we got this, don't worry about it. Like, no, we don't. We do not have it.
No, we don't. It's a good reminder of how intimately he knows us, and how he knows what we need, obviously. But if you're feeling anxious, give give praise, name what you're grateful for.
Mhm.
And that, it sounds so simple. It sounds like almost too easy, like,
Mhm.
well, I'm having an anxiety attack and you're telling me to, list that I'm thankful that, I had oatmeal for breakfast, or, like it does almost seem too easy, but God is in the simple, so often what he provides for us is simple. It's like Emily
Mhm.
said, listening to the birds sing, just being grateful that you're watching the sunrise. And I don't know if that sounds hokey or, but it is just truly finding all of the good things around us and giving God thanks for every single good thing, instead of focusing so much on what's going wrong. Or I don't know, I think we're created to just sort of notice what's not right
Yes.
first.
Mhm.
I had a conversation with my daughter this weekend. We're always talking about friendships and who you surround yourself with and why that's so important. And she said, I don't understand why I have all of these friends, but I'm so hung up because this one person doesn't like me. And isn't that just how we do? We focus on just the one thing in our lives
Mhm.
that's not quite right, or, and we just highlight that instead of going, oh my gracious God, I am thankful for this person, and that I'm loved by these people and known by this person and held
Mhm.
by this person, instead of just saying, but why doesn't that person like me?
Mhm.
So comparison, I guess, is something that we are kind of born doing. I don't know if we ever, I don't think it's learned. I mean, I guess some of it can be, but I think it's just sort of a natural response to see, where am I? Where is she? How am I measuring up to what's happening around me? So we have
Mhm.
to do something really unnatural to kind of rid ourselves of that. And I don't know. What do you do? What do you think, Emily? Look at me asking the questions, Bree. Just take a break, Bree. I've got
I love
this.
it. I love it so much.
I don't know if
I
I have
love it.
any answers.
Well, I remember you telling me something, back when we were at the old church, about you were doing a study on comparison, and it was something about Mary and Martha. And I was just wondering, and I know you probably, I don't know if you can recall it or anything.
I do remember that study though.
Yeah. Well, I just was wondering, is there something practical? Like, if you are struggling with comparing your life with someone who's close to you, are there practical ways to not do that? Like, what is a practical way to be happy for somebody if they have something that we desire?
Mhm.
That is an excellent question. And, but I will say it is one that I have put into practice. And the way I put it into practice is that I try to intentionally love that person more. I will write that person letters because there is some, it's in James, where there's envy and self ambition, then there's all kinds of evil, evil and I think in disorder. Um, I don't want to be a part of that. So what I have to do to battle that, because I do become envious of people. So to battle that, then I have to really intentionally begin to love that person that I'm envious of. I know that sounds terrible. And I may tell you, I love that person, but I have to get over that hump that there's this jealousy. So so God, who, if you're listening and you're receiving letters from me, you may be that person.
I'm not getting any letters from you, Emily. I don't.
We're not good enough. I'm just kidding. We're not good enough for that. No, I'm
But
joking. I'm
I
joking.
have to, I
Joking.
do, but I know that sounds terrible, but I have to
No.
really I have to work hard to get to know that person and I have to spend some extra effort to love that person and to reach out, or it kind of, it builds up in me and it begins to destroy me, and that person doesn't even know it.
Yeah,
Um, so
I
I know
love
that
that.
I know that
Mhm.
sounds when you use the word hokey, I know that sounds kind of hokey, but and they don't even know. And eventually I will tell them. And so I've had to tell a few people that I'm quite jealous of the way I've told Jessica Rasnick, for example. Jessica, if you're listening, listening to her teach, it's intimidating, and it makes me jealous, because I want to be able to teach the word the way she teaches it so aptly. But I was like, I've got to know this girl better, and I've got to encourage her and to build her up. And the more I build her up, the more I realize we are gifted differently, and I will never have the gifts that she has. And I am okay with that. And I want to encourage her in her gift to make her better at her, instead of sitting back and like, oh, I wish that were me. And so it ends up benefiting both of us.
Yeah.
So that's that. So that's one of my most recent ones. So Jessica already knows this. She knows that I was terribly jealous of her. But that, I think it's I just have to do that for myself, or it ends up eating at me, and the devil ends up winning that battle.
Yeah.
And relationships become severed, not because the other person has done anything, it's because I'm building up a wall.
Right.
So
Yeah. Perfect. That was a great answer to my question.
Oh,
Thank you.
thanks,
I'll
Jen.
give it back to you now, Bree.
Oh, well. Oh man. Well, I do think that was a wonderful answer, and probably a good way for us to end this episode. Look, Emily, that curveball came, you just knocked it out the park. There you go.
Yes, you did.
Oh man,
Wow.
no.
Real life.
There you go. Oh goodness. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation today, and we're so thankful for all of our listeners out there. Feel free to share from any social media platform. You can comment, interact with us in any way, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye.